For 78 years of my life, my family members always saw me as just a sweet cookie-baking grandma. None of them knew that in Las Vegas, I was known as the Queen of Cards. It all started back in 1968 when I was just 21 years old. My husband Richard had been drafted into the Vietnam War, leaving me alone in our small apartment in Reno. The loneliness was crushing, especially at night when the silence became too much to bear. That's when I started frequenting the local diner. One evening, I noticed a group of men playing cards in the back room. They were laughing, smoking cigars, and seemed to be having the time of their lives. I stood by the doorway, watching their every move with fascination. "You want to join, lady?" one of them asked, catching me staring. His name was Frank, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "I don't know how to play," I admitted shyly. Frank chuckled. "Well, there's only one way to learn." That night, I lost $20, all the money I had for groceries that week. But something ignited inside me. The strategic thinking, the psychology of reading other players, the thrill of taking risks. It was intoxicating. I returned the following evening, having practiced with a deck of cards all day. This time, I won $45. Frank seemed impressed. "You're a natural, Margaret," he said, using my given name. Little did I know that moment would change the trajectory of my entire life. Over the next few months, I became a regular at their table. Frank took me under his wing, teaching me all the nuances of poker. I learned about tells, those tiny, unconscious gestures players make when they're bluffing or have a strong hand. I discovered the mathematics of the game, calculating probabilities in my head faster than anyone at the table. By the time Richard returned from the war, I had saved nearly $3,000 from my winnings, a small fortune in those days. I told him I'd been working extra shifts at the diner. It was the first of many lies I would tell my family over the decades. As the years passed, I built a reputation in underground poker circles across Nevada. I wasn't Margaret anymore. I became Mags, the unassuming housewife who could clean out a table of overconfident men without batting an eye. By day, I baked cookies for PTA meetings and volunteered at church. By night, I was calculating pot odds and culling bluffs in smoky back rooms. When Richard and I moved to Las Vegas in the mid-70s for his job at the construction company, it opened up a whole new world of opportunities. The underground poker scene there was thriving, with high-stakes games happening every night. That's where I earned my nickname, the Queen of Cards. I kept my poker life completely separate from my family life. Richard never questioned where I went on my ladies' nights out or why we always seemed to have extra money for vacations. My two sons, Derek and Timothy, grew up thinking their mother was just an ordinary housewife who enjoyed her book club and gardening. After Richard died of a heart attack in 2008, I retired from poker. Or at least that's what I told everyone in the underground circuit. The truth was, I missed the game, the adrenaline, the strategy, the respect I commanded at the table. My home life felt empty without Richard, and my nights stretched endlessly before me. That's when I got the call from Frank, now 82 years old and still connected to the poker world. "Mags," he said, his voice raspier than I remembered, "there's gonna be a tournament, the biggest one yet. $5 million buy-in. Winners take all." I hadn't touched a deck of cards in nearly 5 years. I told Frank I'd think about it. Later that night, as I was babysitting my youngest grandson, I found myself shuffling his playing cards with the same dexterity I had decades ago. The muscle memory was still there, and so was the hunger. But what I didn't know was that this tournament would put me face to face with dangers I'd never encountered in all my years at the table. And my decision would risk everything I'd built, including my relationship with my family. I spent the next week in a state of restless indecision. $5 million was no small sum. It represented almost my entire life savings. I'd been smart with my poker winnings over the years, investing in real estate and stocks, creating a comfortable nest egg that my family assumed came from Richard's life insurance and our prudent saving habits. "Mom, are you okay? You seem distracted," Derek said during our weekly Sunday dinner. At 49, my eldest son had Richard's serious eyes and my stubborn chin. He worked as an accountant and lived for spreadsheets and sensible decisions. "I'm fine, dear. Just thinking about redecorating the living room," I lied smoothly. Decades of poker had made me an excellent bluffer. That night, I opened the safe hidden behind the painting in my bedroom, a secret even Richard never knew about. Inside was my emergency bankroll, exactly $5 million in bearer bonds, easily convertible to cash. My fingers trembled as I touched the papers. This money was meant to be my children's inheritance, but the call of the game was too strong. The next morning, I called Frank. "I'm in," I said simply. "That's my girl," he chuckled. "The tournament's in 3 weeks. Better start practicing." I converted the guest bedroom into my training ground. I ordered new decks of cards, downloaded poker analysis software on a laptop I bought specifically for this purpose, and even hired a young poker champion I found online for private coaching sessions over video calls. "You have amazing instincts, Mrs. Thornton," said Jason, my 28-year-old coach. "But the game has evolved. The younger players use game theory now, mathematical models that optimize decision-making. I spent hours mastering these new concepts, often practicing until my arthritic fingers ached. By day, I maintained my routine. Baking for church functions, babysitting my grandchildren, attending my garden club. No one suspected that at night I was preparing for the biggest poker game of my life. A week before the tournament, Frank came to see me. He looked older than his 82 years, his once strong frame now hunched and frail. "Mags, there's something you should know," he said gravely as we sat in my kitchen. "This tournament, it's not like the old days. It's being hosted by Viktor Kasov." My blood ran cold. Viktor Kasov was notorious in the underground poker world, a Russian businessman with ties to organized crime. In my heyday, I'd been careful to avoid his games. "Frank, why didn't you tell me? Would you have agreed if I had?" His roomy eyes held mine. I sighed. "Probably not, but I've already committed the money. You can still back out." I thought about it for a moment. The sensible Margaret, the grandmother, the church volunteer, would definitely back out. But Mags, the queen of cards, had never run from a challenge. "No," I said firmly. "I'm playing." The night before the tournament, I sat my sons down in my living room. Derek came with his wife, Patricia, while Timothy brought along his teenage daughter, Emma. At 45, Timothy was the spitting image of Richard. Same crooked smile, same easy laugh. "I'm going on a trip," I announced, "to visit an old friend in California. I'll be gone for about a week." "That's nice, Mom," Timothy said, distracted by something on his phone. "Which friend?" "Rose Miller," I said, inventing a name. "From my college days." Derek frowned. "I don't remember you ever mentioning a Rose." I felt a flash of irritation. Derek had always been too observant for his own good. "Well, we reconnected recently on Facebook," I said, mentally thanking Emma for setting up my social media accounts last Christmas. "Since when do you use Facebook, Grandma?" Emma asked, looking up from her own phone with a skeptical teenager stare. I forced a laugh. There's a lot you don't know about your old grandma. If they only knew how true that statement was. The next morning, I packed a small suitcase, hiding my lucky card protector, a silver dollar Richard had given me on our first anniversary, in my toiletry bag. As I backed my car out of the driveway, I noticed Derek watching from his car parked across the street. What I didn't realize then was that my careful web of lies was about to unravel in ways I could never have anticipated. And the stakes weren't just monetary. They were life and death. The tournament was held in an exclusive mansion on the outskirts of Las Vegas, far from the glittering strip and its tourists. A stern-faced valet took my car, barely glancing at the elderly woman in sensible shoes and a cardigan. If only he knew I was carrying a cashier's check for $5 million in my handbag. The mansion's interior was a study in tasteless opulence, gilded cherubs on the ceilings, marble floors so polished they reflected the crystal chandeliers hanging overhead. Men in expensive suits mingled with women wearing dresses that cost more than most cars. I felt distinctly out of place in my modest pantsuit. "Mags!" Frank's familiar voice called out. He hobbled toward me, leaning heavily on a cane. "You made it!" "Wouldn't miss it," I said, squeezing his arm. "How many players?" 10. All high rollers. "And all of them will underestimate you," he whispered with a wink. A tall man with silver hair approached us. His smile didn't reach his cold blue eyes. "Ah, the famous Queen of Cards," he said with a thick Russian accent. "Viktor Kosov, welcome to my home." I shook his outstretched hand, noting the heavy gold rings on his fingers. "Thank you for having me, Mr. Kosov." "Please, call me Victor. Frank has told me so much about your talents." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. "The buy-in?" I handed him the cashier's check. He examined it briefly before passing it to a stone-faced assistant. "Excellent. We begin in 1 hour. Please, enjoy the refreshments." As Victor walked away, Frank leaned closer. "Be careful around him, Mags. The rumors about what happens to people who cross him." "I'm just here to play cards," I assured him, though a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. I spent the next hour observing the other players. There was a tech billionaire who couldn't stop fidgeting with his watch, a clear tell, a Middle Eastern oil magnate who spoke too loudly when bluffing, a Hollywood producer whose eyes narrowed slightly when he had a strong hand, and then there was the young woman, no older than 30, with a poker face that rivaled my own. She caught me watching her and raised her champagne glass in a silent toast, a worthy opponent. When we finally took our seats at the custom poker table, I felt a familiar calm settle over me. This was my element. Age, gender, background, none of it mattered here. Only skill, strategy, and nerves of steel. The first few hands were cautious, everyone testing the waters. I played conservatively, folding more often than not, building my image as the timid old lady. By the third hour, I'd neither won nor lost significantly. That's when I decided to make my move. With a pair of kings in my hand and a king showing on the flop, I went all in against the tech billionaire who I suspected had a flush draw. He called my bet with a confident smirk that quickly faded when the turn and river failed to complete his flush. Just like that, I doubled my chips. "Well played, Mrs. Thornton," she said, her British accent crisp. "Thank you, dear," I replied, stacking my chips with practiced precision. By midnight, we were down to 5 players. I was holding my own, sitting on a healthy stack of chips. That's when my phone buzzed with a text. Normally, I would never check my phone during a game, but something compelled me to glance at the screen. It was from Derek. "Mom, where are you really? Rose Miller died in 2010. I checked." My heart skipped a beat, Before I could process this, Victor called for a break. 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen. We will resume at 1 a.m. As the others stood to stretch their legs, Victor motioned for me to join him by the window. "Mrs. Thornton, you are quite the player," he said, offering me a glass of water. "Thank you," I replied cautiously. "It would be a shame if anything were to distract you from the game." He glanced meaningfully at my phone. "Family troubles, perhaps?" A chill ran down my spine. How could he know? And then it hit me. The mansion was probably under surveillance. He'd seen Derek's text. "No troubles," I said evenly. "Just my son checking in." Victor smiled. A predator smile. "Family is so important, isn't it? I know yours means the world to you. Your son Derek, the accountant, Timothy, the high school teacher, and your granddaughter Emma, such a talented pianist." My blood turned to ice. He'd been watching my family. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Victor's smile widened. "Just to ensure our game remains interesting." As he walked away, I realized with sickening clarity that I'd stepped into something far more dangerous than a high-stakes poker game. The real question now wasn't whether I could win, but whether my family and I would make it out unscathed. During the break, I slipped away to the mansion's lavish bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and called Derek with shaking hands. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" he demanded when he answered. "I'm at your house right now. Timothy's here too." "Listen to me very carefully," I whispered, aware that Victor might have the bathrooms bugged too. "I need you and Timothy to take Emma and Patricia and go to Aunt Judith's cabin upstate, right now." "What? Why? Mom, you're scaring me." "I can't explain everything, but I'm in a situation—" I hesitated, decades of secrecy making the truth stick in my throat. "I'm playing poker, Derek. A high-stakes tournament." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Poker? You?" His laugh was short, disbelieving. "Mom, if you're in some kind of trouble—" "The trouble is real," I cut him off. "And the man running this tournament knows where you live, where Timothy teaches, that Emma plays piano. He threatened you all indirectly." Another silence, longer this time. "Who are you?" Derek finally asked, his voice small. The question cut deeper than any knife. "I'm still your mother," I said softly. "There are just some things you don't know about me. I'll explain everything later, I promise. But right now, you need to get everyone to safety." After more convincing, Derek agreed to leave town with the family. I hung up, my heart heavy with the realization that my two lives had finally, catastrophically collided. When I returned to the poker room, the young British woman was waiting by my chair. "Rough call?" she asked, gesturing to my phone. "You could say that," I replied, sitting down. She leaned closer. "Be careful around Victor," she murmured. "He doesn't like to lose." Before I could respond, the other players returned and the game resumed. I struggled to focus, my mind split between the cards in my hand and the danger my family might be in. I played too aggressively, then too conservatively, my strategy in shambles. By 3 a.m., I'd lost nearly half my chips. The tech billionaire had busted out, leaving me, the British woman, the oil magnate, and a quiet Japanese businessman still in the game. During a brief bathroom break, Frank cornered me in the hallway. "Pull yourself together," he hissed. "Victor's enjoying watching you self-destruct." "I threatened my family, Frank," I whispered back. Frank's face paled. "Jesus, Mags, I never would have brought you into this if I'd known." "It's too late now," I said. "I've got to win this thing and get out." When we returned to the table, I forced myself to breathe deeply, channeling the focus that had made me a legend decades ago.
The cards hadn't changed, the math hadn't changed, and reading people, that was still my greatest strength. I noticed Victor watching me with cold amusement as the dealer shuffled the cards. His confidence sparked something defiant in me. If he wanted to play games with the Queen of Cards, he'd learn that royalty doesn't surrender easily. Over the next 2 hours, I clawed my way back. I caught the oil magnate bluffing on a major hand and took a substantial pot from him. I folded when the Japanese businessman had a full house, saving myself a costly mistake. By dawn, we were down to 3, me, the British woman, and the Japanese businessman. That's when Victor announced another hour-long break. Rest, refresh yourselves. The final table resumes at 8 a.m. I was exhausted, running on adrenaline and fear. In the mansion's kitchen, I found coffee and forced myself to eat a piece of toast. The British woman joined me. "Alexander Reed," she said, extending her hand. "Margaret Thornton," I replied. "But in certain circles, I'm called Nags." "I know," she smiled. "The Queen of Cards. You're something of a legend." "And you?" I asked, curious about this young woman who played with such precision. "MI6, actually," she said so quietly I almost missed it. "Intelligence officer," she corrected with a small smile. "And right now, your ally. Victor has men watching your family's movements. They left your house an hour ago, heading north." My heart lurched. "How do you know that?" "Because we have men watching his men," she said simply. "Your family will be fine, Mrs. Thornton, but we need your help to take Victor down." As Alexandra outlined her plan, I realized that this tournament had higher stakes than I'd ever imagined. The next few hours wouldn't just determine my financial future, they could impact international security. And all I'd wanted was one last game.
Alexandra's plan was as elegant as it was dangerous. Victor kept digital records of his criminal enterprises on a server in his office. During the final round of the tournament, she needed a distraction to access it. That's where I came in. "I need to lose to you," I said slowly, processing the implications. "A dramatic public meltdown that will draw everyone's attention." "Exactly," Alexandra nodded. "It doesn't have to be immediate. Play normally until I give you the signal. I'll adjust my watch 3 times in quick succession." The final table reconvened at 8 a.m. sharp. Victor watched us with the benign smile of a man who believed he controlled every variable in the room. If only he knew. The Japanese businessman, Mr. Tanaka, was eliminated within the first hour, leaving just Alexandra and me. Heads-up poker is an intimate dance. Just 2 players trying to outwit each other. Under normal circumstances, I would have relished the challenge, but these weren't normal circumstances. I played my best game, waiting for Alexandra's signal. We traded small pots back and forth, neither gaining a significant advantage. Victor grew visibly impatient, checking his watch repeatedly. "Ladies, perhaps we could accelerate this match," he suggested after 2 hours of careful play. "I propose we double the blinds." Raising the blinds would force more aggressive betting, bringing the game to a faster conclusion. Alexandra and I agreed. The very next hand, I was dealt pocket aces, the best starting hand in poker. Alexandra raised preflop, and I called. The flop brought a 3rd ace, giving me 3 of a kind. I bet conservatively, and Alexandra called. The turn card was a 7, not helping or hurting my hand. I bet again, and Alexandra raised substantially. As I contemplated my response, I noticed her subtly adjusting her watch once, twice, 3 times. The signal. I needed to lose this hand spectacularly. But how? My 3 aces were almost certainly the winning hand. Unless... A crazy idea formed in my mind. What if she had pocket 7s? The turn card would have given her a full house, 7s full of aces.
It was unlikely, but possible. I pushed all my chips into the middle. All in, I announced. Alexandra called immediately, confirming my suspicion. She indeed had pocket sevens, giving her a full house that beat my three aces. No, I cried, summoning every acting skill I possessed. I stood up, knocking my chair backward. You cheated! You must have cheated! All eyes were on me now, including Victor's security personnel. Alexandra revealed her cards, showing the full house. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her slip away during the commotion. Mrs. Thornton, please control yourself, Victor said coldly. I've been playing poker before you were born, I continued my tirade, pointing a trembling finger at Alexandra's empty chair. No one gets that lucky. As security moved toward me, I clutched my chest and staggered backward. My heart, I gasped, collapsing into a conveniently placed armchair. The resulting chaos was exactly what Alexandra needed. Medical staff rushed to my side, security was distracted, and Victor himself came to assess the situation. I continued my performance, breathing heavily and demanding my medication from my purse. 15 minutes later, Alexandra returned, slipping seamlessly back into the concerned opponent role. She knelt aside my chair, ostensibly checking on me, and whispered, "It's done. We need to get out of here." I nodded imperceptibly, then announced I was feeling better, but needed to withdraw from the tournament. Congratulations, Miss Reed. The better player won today. Victor seemed relieved that the drama was concluding. He personally escorted Alexandra and me to the mansion's entrance where our cars awaited. As we walked, Alexandra kept up light conversation about the tournament, while I played the role of the disappointed but dignified loser. At the door, Victor shook Alexandra's hand. "Your winnings will be transferred as discussed," he said smoothly. Then he turned to me with a thin smile. "Better luck next time, Mrs. Thornton. Do send my regards to your family." The threat hung in the air between us. I met his gaze steadily. "I certainly will when I see them next." Only when we were in our respective cars, driving away from the mansion, did I allow myself to exhale. I followed Alexandra's car as planned, taking a circuitous route to ensure we weren't being followed. An hour later, we pulled into an unmarked warehouse on the outskirts of town. Inside, a team of agents was already processing the data Alexandra had stolen. She introduced me to her superior, a stern-looking man who seemed both impressed and by suspicious of my involvement. "We've been after Kasov for years. The evidence you helped us acquire will shut down his operations across 3 continents." "What about my family?" I asked, the fear I'd been suppressing finally bubbling to the surface. "They're safe," he assured me, "but Victor's organization is extensive. Until we complete our arrests, you'll all need protection." As I processed this information, my phone rang. It was Derek. "Mom," he said, his voice tight with emotion, "I think it's time you told us what's really going on." I closed my eyes, realizing that my decades-long charade was finally over. The truth would change how my family saw me forever. But perhaps, just maybe, they might eventually understand why the quiet housewife they thought they knew had become the queen of cards.
3 days later, I sat in a safe house outside of Reno, surrounded by my stunned family. Derek, Timothy, Patricia, and Emma listened in disbelieving silence as I recounted my secret life as a professional poker player. Alexandra and 2 other agents stood discreetly in the corner, confirming parts of my story when necessary. "Let me get this straight," Derek said when I finished. "You've been playing underground poker for over 50 years? And you're good enough that they call you the Queen of Cards?" I nodded, watching his face carefully. "And Dad knew nothing about this?" Timothy asked, his voice strained. "Your father knew I played occasionally," I admitted, "but he didn't know the extent of it or how much I won." "So those family vacations to Hawaii, college tuitions, the down payment on our first house,
Derek's voice rose with each question. All from illegal gambling? Poker itself isn't illegal, I corrected gently. But yes, some of the venues were unauthorized. Emma, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly burst out laughing. Everyone turned to stare at her. I'm sorry, she said, wiping tears from her eyes. It's just, all this time I thought Grandma was the most boring person alive. No offense, she added quickly. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. None taken, dear. This explains so much, she continued, like how you always win at gin rummy, or how you knew Uncle Derek was lying about denting the car last Christmas. Tells. Everyone has them. Mine's apparently obvious, Derek muttered. Patricia, who had remained silent until now, reached for my hand. I think what they're trying to say, Margaret, is that we're all just processing. It's a lot to take in. I know. And I'm sorry for keeping this from you all. I never meant for any of you to be in danger. Alexandra stepped forward. Speaking of danger, we've made significant progress. Victor Kasov was arrested this morning in Geneva. His organization is being dismantled as we speak. Relief washed over me. So it's over. Not quite, Alexandra said. Some of his lieutenants are still at large. Until we've rounded them all up, you and your family need to remain under protection. Derek ran his hands through his hair in frustration. For how long? A few weeks at most, Alexandra assured him. We've arranged for you all to stay at a secure location in Montana. Beautiful place, very remote. Perfect for reconnecting as a family. The pointed look she gave me wasn't subtle. This would be my chance to rebuild trust with my children and granddaughter, to reconcile my two identities into one honest whole. Later that evening, as agents helped us pack for Montana, Emma sat beside me on the safe house porch. Teach me, she said simply. Teach you what? Poker, your tricks, how to read people. Her eyes, so like Richard's, shone with curiosity. I want to know everything about my card shark grandma. For the first time since this ordeal had begun, I felt a glimmer of hope. I fetched a deck of cards from my purse. I always carried one, and began to shuffle with practiced ease. The first thing you need to understand, I said, dealing us each a hand, is that poker isn't really about the cards. It's about the people holding them. Emma watched transfixed as my fingers manipulated the cards with a dexterity that belied my age. Did you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. Living a double life all these years? I paused, considering the question carefully. There were moments, I admitted, especially when I missed important family events because I was at a game. But poker gave me something I couldn't find elsewhere, a place where I was valued for my mind, not just as someone's wife or mother. Emma nodded thoughtfully. I get that. We played a few hands in comfortable silence. Emma was a quick study, already developing a decent poker face. Your grandfather would have loved you so much, I said softly. He always said you got the best parts of all of us. Did you love him? She asked suddenly. With all the secrets? With my whole heart, I answered without hesitation. The secrets were never about lack of love. They were about being afraid to lose what I had. Emma considered this, then gathered the cards and began to shuffle them herself, mimicking my technique. For what it's worth, she said, dealing a new hand, I think the Queen of Cards is pretty badass. I laughed, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Perhaps my family wouldn't understand everything right away, but they were trying, and for now, that was enough. The next morning, as we prepared to leave for Montana, I received a package. Inside was a deck of cards, with a note from Alexandra. The game isn't over yet. Stay sharp. I tucked the cards into my purse, wondering what she meant. As our convoy of black SUVs pulled away from the safe house, I couldn't shake the feeling that despite Victor's arrest, the most dangerous hand was yet to be played.
Montana in spring was breathtaking, rolling meadows bursting with wildflowers, snow-capped mountains standing sentinel against an impossibly blue sky. Our secure location turned out to be a sprawling ranch house surrounded by acres of pristine wilderness. We settled into an uneasy routine. 2 agents remained with us at all times, polite but ever vigilant. Derek worked remotely, setting up his laptop at the dining room table each morning. Timothy threw himself into exploring the property, his natural enthusiasm gradually returning. Patricia discovered the well-stocked kitchen and began baking obsessively, a stress response, I recognized, having done the same thing myself over the years. Emma and I spent our days playing cards. I taught her everything I knew, not just the rules and strategies of different poker variants, but the psychology behind the game. She was an exceptional student, absorbing concepts that had taken me years to master. "Grandma," she asked one afternoon as we practiced calculating pot odds, "how much money did you win over the years? Ballpark figure." I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Around $30 million. Emma's jaw dropped. "30 million? And you live in that little house in Henderson?" "What would I do with a mansion?" I chuckled. "Besides, flashy displays of wealth draw attention. The best players stay under the radar." "So where is it all? The money?" "Investments, mostly. Real estate. Some in offshore accounts." I smiled at her shocked expression. "I'll show you someday. It's your inheritance, after all." Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Agent Miller, one of our protective detail. "Mrs. Thornton, could I have a word?" I followed him onto the porch, suddenly anxious. "Is it about Victor's people?" "No, ma'am. It's about Frank Dolan." My heart sunk. Frank, my oldest friend, the man who'd introduced me to poker all those decades ago. What about him? "He's been trying to contact you. He says it's urgent." 10 minutes later, I was on a secure line with Frank. His voice sounded thin, frightened. "Mags, they're looking for you," he said without preamble. "Victor's brother, Mikhail." "Victor has a brother? I hadn't known that." "Yeah, and he's worse than Victor ever was. He knows you helped the feds. Frank's voice broke. "He's already been to my place." Cold fear gripped me. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay. They roughed me up a bit, but I convinced them they didn't know where you were." He paused. "Didn't I? Right?" "Right," I confirmed, relieved that the agents hadn't shared our location even with Frank. "What does he want?" "The flash drive." "What flash drive?" "The one that Alexandra slipped into your purse during the tournament. Don't tell me you didn't know." My mind raced back to that moment at the mansion when Alexandra had knelt beside my chair. Had she put something in my purse then? I hadn't checked it thoroughly since, using only my wallet for day-to-day needs. "I need to go, Frank. Stay safe." I hung up and immediately dumped the contents of my purse onto the bed. There, nestled between my compact mirror and a roll of mints, was a small black flash drive I'd never seen before. Alexandra had indeed planted it on me, without my knowledge or consent. I stared at it torn between anger and curiosity. What was on this device that made it valuable enough for Mikhail Kasov to hunt me down? Agent Miller appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Thornton, is everything all right?" I quickly swept the flash drive into my palm. "Fine, just looking for some aspirin." After he left, I examined the drive more carefully. It looked ordinary, with no markings or distinguishing features. I considered giving it to the agents, but hesitated. Alexandra had chosen to give it to me secretly, bypassing her own team. There must have been a reason. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I slipped into the study and plugged the drive into the computer. It contained a single, password-protected file. I tried several combinations, Victor's name, the date of the tournament, even Queen of Cards.
all unsuccessful. I was about to give up when I remembered the deck of cards Alexandra had sent me. I retrieved it from my room and examined each card carefully. On the ace of spades, written in tiny print along the edge, was a string of characters. M4GS minus RYAL minus FLUSH. I entered it, and the file opened to reveal a massive database. Financial records, names, dates, transactions. I recognized some of the names from news headlines. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities, all connected to substantial payments from shell companies I suspected were linked to the Kassav brothers. This wasn't just evidence against Victor, it was leverage against some of the most powerful people in the world. I copied the files to the computer, then removed the flash drive and hid it in the hollow heel of my shoe, an old poker player's trick for concealing emergency cash. Then I deleted the copied files from the computer, leaving no trace. The next morning, I pulled Agent Miller aside. "I need to speak with Alexandra Reed. It's urgent." "Ms. Reed is currently on assignment overseas. I can try to get a message to her." "Tell her Frank called. He mentioned Mikhail and a flash drive. She'll understand." 2 tense days passed. I kept the flash drive with me at all times, even sleeping with my modified shoe under my pillow. I taught Emma more poker techniques, played board games with Timothy, and tried to mend fences with Derek, who remained coolly polite but distant. On the third day, Alexandra arrived at the ranch house, looking exhausted but alert. She immediately requested a private conversation with me. We walked to the edge of the property, well out of earshot of the house. "You have it?" she asked without preamble. I nodded. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Plausible deniability. If Victor's people had caught you, you genuinely wouldn't know what they were after." "And now Mikhail is after me instead," I said sharply. "He attacked Frank." Alexandra's expression softened. "I'm sorry about Frank. We've moved him to a secure location." She held out her hand. "The drive, please." I made no move to retrieve it. "First, tell me what's really going on. Why give it to me instead of your superiors?" Alexandra glanced around before answering. "Because I don't know who I can trust anymore. Some of the names in those files, they have connections inside our agency." "You're saying you have corrupt agents?" "I'm saying there's too much money involved for everyone to stay clean." She sighed. "I needed the drive somewhere safe until I could figure out who to trust." I studied her face, using all my years of reading people at poker tables. She was scared, but I believed she was telling the truth. "I'll give it to you," I said finally, "but I want something in return." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Protection for my family, long term, and I want to know everything, who these people are, what they've done." Before she could respond, a distant crack echoed across the property. Alexandra's eyes widened. She shoved me to the ground just as a bullet whizzed past where my head had been. "Sniper!" she shouted, drawing her weapon. "Run!"
As gunfire erupted around us, Alexandra grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a cluster of pine trees at the edge of the property. My 78-year-old legs weren't built for sprinting, but adrenaline is a powerful motivator. "Down!" Alexandra shouted, pushing me behind a fallen log as another bullet splintered the tree trunk above us. In the distance, I could see agents swarming from the ranch house, weapons drawn. My heart seized. My family. "They're getting them to the panic room," Alexandra assured me, checking her weapon. "Standard protocol." Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by anger. "You said we were safe here." "We thought we were." She peered cautiously over the log. "Mikhail must have resources we didn't anticipate." More gunfire echoed across the property, a firefight between our protection detail and the unseen attackers.
Alexandra's radio crackled to life. She listened intently, her expression grim. At least 4 hostiles. They've got the house surrounded. She turned to me. Mrs. Thornton, I need the flash drive, now. I reached for my shoe, extracting the small device from its hiding place. Alexandra took it, then handed me her backup weapon, a small pistol. You know how to use this? Point and shoot, I said dryly. I grew up in rural Nevada. My father taught me. She nodded approvingly. Stay here. I'm going to create a diversion to draw them away from the house. And leave me alone? I hissed. You'll be safer than with me. They're tracking my movements. She checked her ammunition. Once the fighting moves away from the house, make your way to the eastern entrance. There's a tunnel in the pantry that leads to an underground bunker. Your family will be there. Before I could protest, she was gone, darting through the trees with remarkable agility. I clutched the pistol, its weight unfamiliar yet oddly comforting. Gunshots continued to ring out, but now they seemed more distant. Alexandra's diversion was working. I waited until the sounds of conflict had moved well away from my position, then began making my way toward the house, staying low and using trees for cover. Decades of poker had taught me patience and strategic thinking. I moved deliberately, pausing often to listen and observe. The eastern entrance appeared clear. I crept toward it, staying close to the wall. Just as I reached for the door handle, a twig snapped behind me. I whirled around to find myself facing a tall man with Victor's cold blue eyes. Mrs. Thornton, he said, his Russian accent thicker than his brother's. At last we meet. Mikhail Kazov was pointing a sleek black pistol directly at my chest. My own weapon was at my side, useless unless I could raise it faster than he could pull his trigger, an unlikely prospect. Where is it? He demanded. Where's what? I asked, playing dumb, while mentally calculating my options. Don't insult my intelligence, he snarled. The flash drive. Agent Reed isn't the only one with sources inside your precious agencies. A terrible realization dawned on me. You let her take the flash drive. You're tracking it. A cold smile confirmed my suspicion. A simple RFID chip embedded within. Very effective. My mind raced. If Mikhail caught Alexandra, he'd have both of her and the drive, unless... She destroyed it, I lied smoothly, channeling the poker face that had won me millions. She smashed it with a rock when she realized you were here. Doubt flickered in his eyes. You're bluffing. Am I? I held his gaze steadily. Why do you think she left me behind? I'm the contingency plan. I memorized the key names and numbers. It was a desperate play, but I needed to keep him talking, keep his attention on me rather than pursuing Alexandra. Every second bought her more time to realize the drive was compromised. Mikhail stepped closer, his pistol unwavering. Then you'll come with me. I don't think so. The voice came from behind him. Derek stood in the doorway, a shotgun from the ranch house armory pointed at Mikhail's back. Drop the gun. Mikhail's eyes narrowed, calculating his options. I saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Don't, I warned. My son was Nevada junior skeet shooting champion 3 years running. This, at least, wasn't a bluff. Derek's trophies still lined his childhood bedroom. After a tense moment, Mikhail slowly lowered his weapon. Derek stepped forward to retrieve it, keeping the shotgun trained on him. Mom, are you okay? He asked, his eyes never leaving Mikhail. I'm fine, but we need to warn Alexandra. The flash drive is... A deafening explosion cut me off. We all turned to see a plume of smoke rising from the western edge of the property, where Alexandra had been heading. Mikhail's face twisted into a triumphant smile. It seems your agent friend has discovered my little surprise. Horror washed over me. Had she triggered some kind of booby trap? Was she hurt or worse? Before I could process this, Mikhail made his move. With surprising speed for his size, he knocked the shotgun aside and lunged for Derek. They crashed to the ground, wrestling for control. I raised the pistol Alexandra had given me, but they were grappling too closely for me to risk a shot. Instead, I rushed forward and brought the weapon down hard on the back of Mikhail's head. He slumped, momentarily stunned. Derek scrambled away, reclaiming the shotgun. "The panic room," he gasped. "Timothy and the others." "Go," I urged him. "I'll handle him." As Derek disappeared into the house, I kept the pistol trained on Mikhail, who was regaining his senses. Our eyes met, and in his I saw the cold calculation of a man who cheated death many times. "It's over, Mikhail," I said firmly. "Your men are being rounded up as we speak." He smiled, a predator's smile that sent chills down my spine. "Mrs. Thornton, in my experience, nothing is truly over until everyone who knows the truth is silenced." As he spoke, I noticed his hand inching toward his ankle. A backup weapon, most likely. I'd seen enough movies to recognize the move. "Don't," I warned, tightening my grip on the pistol. His smile widened. "You won't shoot me. You're a grandmother, not a killer." In that moment, staring down a man who threatened everything I loved, I realized something important. I'd spent my life compartmentalizing Margaret the grandmother and Mags the poker queen. But they weren't separate people. They were both me. "You are right about one thing," I said calmly. "I am a grandmother. And there's nothing more dangerous than a grandmother protecting her family."
I didn't have to shoot. Just as Mikhail reached for his concealed weapon, 2 agents burst from the trees, weapons drawn. They subdued him with practiced efficiency, cuffing his hands behind his back. "Mrs. Thornton," one of them called to me, "are you hurt?" I lowered the pistol, suddenly aware of how badly my hands were shaking. "I'm fine, but there was an explosion. Agent Reed—" "We've got a team searching for her now," he assured me. As they led Mikhail away, I hurried into the house and made my way to the pantry. The tunnel was exactly where Alexandra had described, behind a false panel in the walk-in freezer. I descended into a surprisingly well-appointed bunker where Timothy, Patricia, and Emma were waiting anxiously. "Grandma," Emma rushed to embrace me. "We heard gunshots and an explosion." "I'm okay," I reassured her, returning the hug fiercely. "Derek's fine too. He helped me with one of the attackers." "Dad did?" Emma looked impressed. "Where is he now?" Timothy asked. "He was right behind me." I turned toward the tunnel entrance with growing concern. At that moment, Derek appeared, looking disheveled but unharmed. He was supporting a limping Alexandra, whose face was smudged with soot and blood. "Alexandra!" I rushed to help them. "What happened? We thought you were caught in that explosion." "Almost," she grimaced, allowing us to lower her onto a couch. I realized the drive was compromised just in time, threw it as far as I could before it detonated. "Mikhail had it rigged to explode?" She nodded. Standard dead man switch. If the RFID signal was interrupted, like if someone tried to destroy the drive, boom! "Boom indeed," I muttered. "Are you badly hurt?" "Just some shrapnel in my leg. I'll live." She looked around at my family. "Everyone else okay?" We all nodded, the reality of what we'd just survived slowly sinking in. "So, it's over?" Patricia asked tentatively. "Really over?" Alexandra and I exchanged glances. The flash drive was destroyed, but I had copied the files to the ranch house computer before deleting them. Did she know that? Should I tell her now? "Not quite," Alexandra said, before I could decide. "Mikhail's in custody, but the network is extensive. We've got a lot of work ahead." "But you're safe now," she added, looking at my family. "All of you. The immediate threat has been neutralized." Later, after Alexandra had been taken to receive medical attention and the property had been secured, my family and I gathered in the ranch house living room. An uncomfortable silence hung in the air. "So, underground poker legend, huh?" Timothy finally said. I nodded, uncertain where this was going. "And you helped take down an international crime syndicate," Derek added. Another nod. And you never once thought to mention any of this at Thanksgiving dinner? Mom, that's seriously cool. The tension in the room dissolved into laughter, slightly hysterical perhaps, but genuine. I was protecting you, I explained. I never wanted my poker life to touch our family life. Well, it has now, Derek said, his tone more serious, and we nearly lost you because of it. I know, I acknowledged, and I'm so sorry for putting you all in danger. But you also saved us, you and your spy friend. She's not exactly my friend, more like a temporary ally. Either way, Patricia said, we owe both of you our lives. Derek sat beside me on the couch, taking my hand in his. Mom, I won't pretend I'm still processing all this, but I want you to know I'm proud of how you handled yourself today. That took courage. Tears stung my eyes. Of all my achievements, the tournament victories, the millions won, the legendary status in poker circles, nothing meant more than those words from my son. The next morning, as we prepared to return to Nevada with a substantial security detail, Alexandra paid us a final visit. Her leg was bandaged, but she moved with purpose. Mrs. Thornton, could we speak privately? We stepped onto the porch, the spring sunshine warming my old bones. The flash drive, she said without preamble. You copied them, didn't you? I studied her face. Would it matter if I had? It might, she said carefully. To both of us. I considered my options. Hypothetically, I said, if such copies existed, what would you suggest happen to them? Hypothetically, she replied, matching my tone, I'd say they should be kept somewhere very safe, by someone who understands when to use them and when not to. Someone like a retired poker player with nothing left to lose. Alexandra smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her. Someone exactly like that. She handed me a small business card with only a phone number printed on it. If you ever need to reach me, for any reason. As she turned to leave, I called after her. Alexandra, the tournament? Did you let me win those hands, or was I just rusty? She paused, then looked back with a mischievous glint in her eye. I guess we'll never know, will we, Your Majesty? I watched her drive away, turning the card over in my fingers. So many secrets, so many layers of deception. It reminded me of the highest stakes poker games, where nothing was ever quite what it seemed. That evening, as our convoy prepared to depart, I took one last walk around the ranch property. The beauty of Montana in spring was a stark contrast to the violence that had erupted here just a day before. As I reached the spot where Mikhail had confronted me, I noticed something glinting in the grass. His watch, broken in the struggle with Derek. I picked it up, turning it over in my palm. The inscription on the back read, "The game never ends." I slipped it into my pocket, a souvenir of sorts, and a reminder that no matter how many hands you win, there's always another game waiting.
6 months later, life had achieved a new kind of normal. My family and I had returned to Nevada, though not to our old homes. The federal government had relocated us to a gated community in Henderson with discreet security measures. Derek and Timothy had new jobs, Emma was adjusting to a new school, and Patricia had started a successful home bakery business. As for me, I was finally embracing both sides of my identity. No more compartmentalizing, no more secrets. My family knew everything. Well, almost everything. I still hadn't told them about the copies of the Kossoff files, securely stored in a safety deposit box under a false name. Some secrets were still necessary. On a crisp October morning, I was teaching Emma the finer points of Texas Hold'em when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Frank standing there, leaning on his cane but looking healthier than when I'd last seen him. "Frank," I embraced him warmly, "you should have called first." "And missed the look on your face?" he chuckled. "Not a chance."
Over coffee, he filled me in on his past few months in protective custody. Boring as hell, he complained, but better than the alternative. Have you heard anything? I asked. About Victor or Mikhail? Victor's trial starts next month. Mikhail's being held at a black site somewhere, too dangerous for regular prison. He sipped his coffee. But that's not why I'm here. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. This came for you, through channels that only a few people know about. Inside was an invitation, elegant cardstock with gold embossing. The Queen is cordially invited to reclaim her throne, November 15th. The usual place, midnight. No signature, but I didn't need one. I recognized Alexandra's style. "What's this about?" Frank asked. I showed him the card. "I'm not sure, but I intend to find out." Later that night, after Frank had gone and the house was quiet, I called the number on Alexandra's card. It rang 3 times before connecting. "I got your invitation," I said without introduction. "Good," she replied. "Will you come?" "That depends. What exactly am I being invited to?" "A game," she said simply, "but not the kind you're used to." "Elaborate." "The files you copied," she said, lowering her voice. "They've led us to something bigger, much bigger, and we need your help." "I'm 78 years old, Alexandra. I'm not cut out for field work." "We don't need you for field work," she assured me. "We need you for what you do best. Reading people, spotting tells, knowing when someone's bluffing." I considered this, and if I say no, then we wish you a happy retirement. But something tells me you miss the action. She wasn't wrong. The past 6 months had been peaceful, but there was a restlessness in me that family life alone couldn't satisfy. Once you've played at the highest stakes, ordinary life feels muted. "I'll have to think about it," I said finally. "Of course, but don't think too long. November 15th. After hanging up, I walked to my bedroom window, looking out at the quiet suburban street. Security lights illuminated manicured lawns and empty sidewalks. Safe, predictable, boring. I thought about Richard, about what he would say if he could see me now. Would he be disappointed in the life I'd led behind his back? Or would he understand that I'd needed something that was mine alone? "What would you do?" I whispered to his memory. The answer came not in words, but in a feeling. The same exhilaration I'd felt when I first sat at a poker table. The sense that life was about to open up in ways I couldn't predict. The next morning, I gathered my family in the living room. "I have something to tell you," I began. "I've been offered a job." "A job?" Derek looked skeptical. "What kind of job?" "Consulting," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. "For the government." Timothy leaned forward. "Does this have something to do with the Kosovs?" "Indirectly," I admitted. "It would involve some travel, maybe some risk, but nothing like before." "Grandma, are you serious?" Emma's eyes were wide. "You're going to be like, what, a spy consultant?" I smiled at her enthusiasm. "Something like that." "Absolutely not," Derek said firmly. "Mom, you nearly died last time. We nearly died." "This is different," I assured him. "No undercover work, no poker tournaments with criminals, just meetings, observations, reports." "And you want to do this?" Patricia asked. "At your age?" "At my age," I repeated with a touch of steel in my voice, "I've earned the right to make my own choices. And yes, I want to do this. I'm good at it." The debate continued for hours, but in the end, they recognized what I'd known all along. This was my decision to make. They didn't have to like it, but they had to respect it. 2 weeks later, I boarded a private jet at a small airfield outside Las Vegas. Alexandra was waiting for me inside, along with 3 men in suits whom she introduced as her team. "Welcome aboard, Mrs. Thornton." she said formally, but with that same hint of mischievous glint I'd seen in Montana. Where are we going? I asked, settling into a plush leather seat. Geneva, to start. From there, it depends on what we find. As the jet taxied down the runway, I felt the familiar flutter in my stomach, the same feeling I'd had before big tournaments. Nervousness, yes, but also anticipation, the thrill of the unknown. I'd spent most of my life dividing myself in two, Margaret, the grandmother, and Mags, the poker queen. Now, in my twilight years, I was finally becoming whole, one woman with a lifetime of secrets, skills, and stories. The Queen of Cards was back in the game, and this time I was playing with a full deck.